Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 1 of the Promise Backlund show, where eventually I will have a really cool tagline summarizing the basic concept of this podcast and what it's about. Today will not be that day because I don't know yet. I basically just decided after thinking about it for like 3 years that now is the time to start a podcast because there aren't enough in the world. No, I mean, kind of, that's what happened, but you'll see. I have more reasons for this that we'll get into in a few weeks when I have more exciting announcements to make. So I'm just kind of warming up. I'm figuring out what this is going to look like. Episode 1 may be extremely different than episode 2 or 3 or 4, and we'll just figure it out together. The reason I wanted to do this, the main reason, is because I have become known for, these 2-minute short format videos on Instagram, TikTok originally, and also the call-in shows, which are really intense, and it's a lot of just debating, and I don't get to have a very nuanced voice, and I don't get to talk about things that aren't an emergency a lot of times. It feels like, these things with the news and politics, and those are all very important things to talk about. But sometimes I just want us to be able to discuss things that are more about just everyday life, because in the midst of all of the insanity going on in the world, we all have to just like get up every day and live our life. So I'm hoping this podcast can be kind of a reprieve from all of that stuff, I don't know what to call it, while also still having it as like a baseline for awareness, like through the lens of, yeah, I have left religion. Yes, I am deeply disturbed at what's going on in the US with Christian nationalism and all of that. Yes, I think there's things we should focus on and talk about every day, like the genocide in Palestine. However, I also think there's other stuff that continues to go on, and I want to talk about those things while knowing that the other is existing and knowing that that's deeply important as well. So this is kind of going to be my space where maybe we don't get so much into current events and the daily news of exactly what's happening. Maybe sometimes we will, but a lot of times I just want to talk about like, what does it look like to find meaning in life? And maybe just some silly hot takes about whatever, I've been thinking about that week. And then sometimes having guests on and then keeping in mind all of these other important things. So I don't know. I feel like I'm rambling now. I hope that's making sense. The other thing is I haven't gotten to do long format, like I said, but that's actually how I started off. As a Christian, I was preaching. I was speaking for long amounts of time. I was also, when I started this Eve work, which I'll get into in a minute, which if somehow you're listening to this podcast before you've discovered my Instagram, I think that's fun actually and cool because I get a new first impression, but I've been known for my social media accounts called Eve Was Framed. And the way those even started was from long format writing. I was writing really long posts on Facebook actually, and it kind of turned into these like 6-second to 2-minute long videos. So anyways, starting this, we're going to see how it goes. And now here I am figuring out the kinks. That's the other thing you guys should know about me. For somebody who, whose entire like work is now on the internet, I don't know how to use tech devices. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm trying to learn this platform that I'm, Riverside. We'll see how it all goes. But just be impressed if I'm able to upload this anywhere, much less onto YouTube and wherever else I'm able to post this. So, bear with me as I figure out where to put the sound and all of that, which, that's another fun thing. The sound. The music throughout the episode might end up changing, probably will change even by next week. I'm just using what I have right now because my husband is a music producer, and so I needed music that I can use that's free, and we have songs that we put out together. So I was like, can you just cut one of our songs up for me to use on this podcast episode? So we'll see how I like it. I got like 30 other songs to choose from, so it might change. Maybe that will be the fun thing. I change it every time. I think that would be annoying though, so I probably won't do that. Okay, so the first thing I wanted to talk about is daylight savings. This episode, we're going to kind of be all over the place. I will tell you that I'm going to share a little bit about myself and my background, how I was raised in evangelical Christianity, what happened to have me now being an atheist activist of sorts, just for people that might not be familiar with the details of my background. We're also going to answer some questions. I'm saying we, there's no we, it's just me. I'm also not used to doing things alone other than 2-minute videos. So I'm going to be answering questions that you guys sent in specifically for this episode. I think that'll be really fun. I have some hot takes I'd like to share, and I have love it, leave it to be decided. But first, I wanted to talk about something that really bothers me, and that is daylight savings time. The reason I want to talk about this is probably by the time you're getting this episode, it should be right before daylight savings time is ending in the States. But let me tell you something infuriating. Also important information if you're just now familiar with my work. That's not the way to say that. If you're just now hearing about me, or if this is your first introduction to me, that's what I want to say. I live in Finland. My husband is from Finland. We moved here in May. So, we'll be back in the States some. You won't hear about it when I am there, just for my safety's sake, but we live in Finland. This weekend, it was Saturday night, my husband says, oh, the clocks are going to go back tonight or forward or whatever it is, where, it's the end of daylight savings. And I was like, what? No way. I look at my calendar, it says the daylight savings is ending next weekend. Guess what? It was ending here. And then it is ending the next weekend in the US. There is a week where we're not even, actually, it's more than a week. It's actually a month, but right now it's ending a week before the US's ends. So on top of the fact that it's infuriating anyways that daylight savings even exists to me, we're not even synced up. The world is not working together on this, which is very inconvenient for me when I have to do, let's say, a podcast episode over on the line. And now I have to do more math, which I already am terrible at, to make sure that I'm on time. And it's going to be even later my time. So I'm going to be even more tired. Maybe not, because it hasn't caught up with me yet, but we'll just see. Anyways. Very annoying right off the bat. Also very interesting that we don't even share the same schedule in the US and in Europe, how they move daylight savings over. But I guess this started because Benjamin Franklin proposed this idea to save candle wax. I assume this is just a myth. There's no way that's real. I wonder if some historian can sign off in the comments, which that's a funny idea to think that a historian would somehow want to be listening to my podcast. But I don't know. That's what the internet is telling me, is that Benjamin Franklin started this idea. And I think what happened is during World War I and World War II, we went into what's called wartime, which is where, and this makes sense to me actually, where we had daylight savings, which was, to have more daylight while you're working and to save energy and all of that, to have it implemented all year round, which I'm like, right, just pick a time, a schedule, and then can we stick with it? Why are we changing? It wreaks havoc on our bodies. I'm pretty sure studies have shown that traffic incidences go way up. I think I saw something saying suicides go up. It's just not good vibes. Daylight savings is not good vibes. I also saw something, 2008, I believe it was, is when George W. Bush decided to, I don't know if it's reenact or just continue this idea of daylight savings time. I know there's been some people, even some Republicans, advocating against daylight savings times, and I'll agree with them on it. I won't agree with the dumbest reasons that they have for it, which didn't J.D. Vance tweet something about it impacting fertility, which I don't know what that is all about. Maybe there's something to it, but I'm pretty sure the tweet didn't expose any kind of intelligent thought. Anyways, I will get behind getting rid of daylight savings time. I think it is ridiculous that we do this thing to our bodies, to our clocks, twice a year. What's even more ridiculous is to do that here in Finland. If you don't know this already, in the summer in Finland, in some places the sun just doesn't set at all for a varying amount of time. And most places it's just that you have really long days. That's where the term midnight sun is coming from, because at midnight you can, you've got the sun out still. So summer is very different here than in the US. If you want to really do daylight savings so that we're taking advantage of the sun, then you're just staying awake the entire day and working. So why? We don't need it. The winter time, it is dark from like 3 p.m. is when it starts getting dark until like 10 a.m. So daylight savings is still not helping anybody. This is doing nothing. I was reading about this to try to figure like why is Finland doing this? I guess it's to try to probably for business people, honestly, so that their calls and work and all of that can line up. But apparently Finland did vote against this and decided to do away with daylight savings time in 2018, but just has taken zero action toward actually implementing or unimplementing that. So I don't know. We'll see. Maybe I'll be here when they finally stop with the daylight savings time. That's my rant. I hate it. Let me know what you guys think. It's the clock change that's really bothering me because having to, like I said, having to do the math and figure out when to wake up, figure out when I'm going to sleep and all of that on the weekend that it changes is annoying. And then making my body deal with the consequences of it the rest of the week. It's just, I didn't even travel anywhere. It's not like, oh, it's a time change because I went somewhere new, so it's cool. It's for no reason. I didn't travel. I stayed at my house, and now I have to be inconvenienced. I'm against it. Now that I have ranted about that, here's my hot take for the week. And this is what I actually would love to hear you guys talk about in the comments. I think that being reachable via phone 24/7 is anxiety inducing, and we should bring back letters and pigeon carriers. Maybe not pigeons, but you know what I'm saying. I since moving, speaking of this time change, since moving to Finland, I have a 8-hour time difference between me and most of the people that I'm in contact with back in the States. And because of that, I now keep my phone completely on do not disturb. I don't get notifications for text messages because of I would wake up in the night to, the people back in the US texting me. My mental health has been so much better in that regard. Granted, and some of my friends are hearing this, I have been horrific about responding to stuff. And I used to feel really, really guilty and awful toward myself for that. I'm learning that what I have to do instead is schedule just long calls or a Zoom call and reconnect, like going to coffee with somebody. And this idea that we have to have these it is fun to have little connecting moments, but this idea that you're kind of obligated to them is exhausting. It's a lot. And so now that I don't feel that anymore because I have this time change, so it's like everybody knows I'm not going to be responding right away. It's just not happening. It's so freeing. My husband has done this always, even in the States, which for similar reasons, because he had his Finn friends that would contact him. So his phone has been on do not disturb. He has every notification off except for myself and his mother. But I'm realizing now, one of the reasons he's so regulated, besides the fact that he grew up with no religious trauma and an amazing mom who did a great job raising a son, he doesn't feel any obligation to his phone whatsoever. And it is actually bizarre that we've let this thing kind of take over our lives in that way, to where we just can be reached at all hours of the day, or even just during the daytime. Even if you turn your phone off at night, still all day there's this obligation to respond to stuff. And 99.9% of the time, it is not stuff that we need to respond to right away. It's just not. We've decided that it is because once we have access to that, it's well, I need to know this right away. I need to, can we plan this thing for this weekend? I need to know today. I don't know. I don't think it's not that much of an emergency. And so I just think we should all start putting our phones on do not disturb more often and not feel obligated to respond to stuff and not apologize when it takes us forever. I understand if it's work related or something that really is a pressing matter, but I don't know. There's got to be a way to figure out how to use phones to our benefit, and not feel like there's some sense of impending doom behind it. That's how I feel about mine, how I was feeling. So let's be less available. I just like that. It's more mysterious. Let's be intentional with the time that we do spend talking to people and reaching out and scheduling things and taking the time to actually connect instead of these other little things. Let's still send the memes, let's send the TikToks, but maybe not expect a whole lot back right away. Maybe we take our time to respond. I don't know. I liked the MySpace days because then you could like go leave a comment on someone's wall or you could DM them, but there wasn't an expectation that that person was going to get back to you immediately. It was just like maybe that day, maybe that weekend, you didn't know. And it was exciting and it was fun when something came in. It wasn't just like, well, wow, they haven't responded to my text and they posted on Instagram, so they must hate me. No, it just like it's a lot. Let's do less. That's my hot take. Let's take a break. When we get back, I am going to share a little bit about myself, my background, how I came to start Eve Was Framed, and what is next from here. Some of you have probably already heard this, but I'm going to share a little bit more than I've ever shared before because I can. All right, we are back on the Promise Backlund show. I'm Promise Backlund. Can we talk about how I feel about the name of this podcast that I have named myself? It's awkward. It's my name, but let me explain kind of why I did this. Number one, because I'm lazy. That's like what you can name a podcast is after your name. I also am wanting to not separate myself, but Eve Was Framed is kind of like the thing I hid behind for so long. And I'd like to just be myself. All these dudes are out here having podcasts with their whole last name. And I'd like to have mine that as well. I almost did the Promise Backlund experience, but I couldn't. I couldn't go that far. Also, it's fun because Backlund, like I said, it's my married last name. I got married last year. And I'm obsessed with my husband, of course, and I have never wanted to change my last name until I was with him because it's like we're a team and I didn't want to take my last name because if you Google that, then like my family comes up. But I wanted us to like have a shared name, like a little team, So it's fun for me. It feels like this new character. It's like this new I can sound really Christian right now. It's this new season in my life. But it's this new time where, I just have written a book. We'll talk about that at some point. And that's going to have my new name. I don't know. It's really cool for me. I like it. I'm trying to embrace it more. And so that's how I got this cringy podcast name. And that's probably going to stay. Also, I think it's fun that it can be called the PB show, like peanut butter show. Also, it can be called the PBS, which I love PBS. Also, we should talk about that someday, what the government did to PBS. Anyways, let's talk about me on the Promise Backlund show. No, let's talk about my story and why I do all of this, why I talk about it so much, why I feel like I can talk about evangelicalism. I grew up in a very Christian home. My parents were both very, very Christian. They came from Christian homes themselves. My dad was raised in Lima, Peru. He was born there, didn't leave until he was 18. He grew up in what he would even call a cult, and it was called The Move, for anybody who wants to know. And he spoke out against that when he was 18 and left. Super interesting. And then my mom grew up just in a very typical like Southern Christian home. But her parents, I don't know the entire story. They ended up getting what we would call filled with the Holy Spirit. So she kind of came from that background. They met in church. They actually met at Chapel Hill, if anybody's familiar with that, in Atlanta, where there was a massive scandal with Earl Polk. That's a fascinating one to look into. And my parents found themselves on the very right side of history, which was advocating for the victims there, to the point that they got sued millions and millions of dollars. They didn't win that case against them, so they didn't have to pay millions and millions of dollars, but it was a whole thing. Anyways, that's kind of the background my family comes from. My sisters and I've got 3 sisters, and I have a brother. He wasn't adopted until we were adults, so he wasn't around for all of this. But we grew up that way, but my dad was just a paint contractor in the beginning. It was when I was around, 6 or 7, he got called out of an audience by John Paul Jackson at a Vineyard church. I remember this, to tell him basically that he was supposed to go into ministry and be a pastor and all of that. So long story short, that happens. And that was a big change for me. I had already been homeschooled. That continued more and more, but now we were having church in our home, and it just continued from there. And we became a full-time ministry family. We were not, how do I express this? I would not call us one of the fundies. We had our friends who were, where the girls couldn't cut their hair and they had the long skirts. Think 19 Kids and Counting, the Duggars, Shiny Happy People, all of that. But we were so close to it. We were just like the cool version. Like we followed so much of those teachings while claiming that we didn't really. But we could also, like have haircuts and wear clothes and stuff like that. But Halloween was not allowed. We didn't call it Easter. We called it the Spring Bunny Day. And then we had Resurrection Day. Those were 2 different days, which the part with the Spring Bunny, that was smart because then we got clearance candy instead of. Anyways, we were super homeschooled using Christian curriculums like Abeka and what are some of the other ones? I can't remember. Sunlight curriculum, all of those. And all of our family, I'm talking aunts, uncles, cousins, were all also very Christian, some of them in ministry. So that was my life, was just completely evangelical Christianity. We were non-denominational, which if you know about that, then you know it's basically a denomination in and of itself that's just accountable to nothing. So that's really healthy. As a teenager, I was leading worship. I was volunteering a lot with different, like with the youth group and stuff like that. Singing was something my parents were having me do from a very young age. They believed that that was God's calling for me to like lead worship or sing something like that. So I was doing that all the time. We were also very involved with Morning Star. We went to all of the kids camps. We did the Harvest Fest thing. So if you're familiar with Morning Star at all, you know how crazy that is. We also were involved with IHOP. We had, which is International House of Prayer, not pancakes. We would have, interns from there come work at our church. We went to the One Thing conferences. We were also very involved with the people from Jesus Camp. So think Lou Engle, think Becky Fisher did our like youth group curriculum for our church. I went to the Ramp multiple summers in a row. So I'm name dropping all of these things in case you know what they are. If you don't, consider yourself lucky. It's crazy. If you've seen Jesus Camp, that was my childhood, basically. And then Bethel was another thing that we were very involved with. Bill Johnson and his family and Chris Valentin were, kind of like friends, peers with my dad. So that's a bit more of my background. I was so into it all. I was not the pastor's kid that was secretly rebelling and that was the problem child. I was the pastor's kid that the other pastors would ask my parents if I could come be a better influence on their kid because I was fully bought in. I mean, I loved Jesus. I believed that I had a relationship with God. I loved leading worship. It terrified me, but I also loved it. I found my worth in Christianity. And to me, it was truth. And to me, Jesus was the way. And I was a very good girl. I wanted to live my life that way, or at least so I thought. That's how deep the indoctrination was. As a child, I was terrified of hell and demons and sin and missing out on heaven. And so I think I know that developed this OCD, religious scrupulosity that ended up turning me into this very devoted, very passionate, all-in Christian. So long story short, which we'll talk about this another time too, purity culture was also a big thing. This is the 90s, early 2000s. Rebecca St. James, Josh Harris, I Kissed Dating Goodbye. This idea of purity culture was that you not only wait for marriage to have sex, but you wait for marriage to even be in love or have a crush or anything. You're supposed to court instead of date. So that means you have to trust God is going to send you the person the very first time that you're dating, hopefully. And you also are supposed to be listening to the adults in your life and letting them have a lot of influence on how this process looks. So all that to say, I fully bought into that. I had the books, and that wasn't even my parents pushing it so much. They didn't have to push it much. I was into it myself. I had the Brio Girl magazines. I was obsessed with Rebecca St. James. And I wanted to, again, be the good Christian girl. I thought that was pleasing to Jesus. And I was like, oh, I just want to please Jesus. So I'm going to live my life this way and everything's going to be great. I got married at 19 to the first person I ever dated or anything like that. And it was awful. It was really awful and traumatizing. I look back on that poor 19-year-old child at the time. I was so naive and I was a kid. I mean, if you look at the wedding pictures, maybe I'll post one here for those that are watching the video. I look like a kid. And it's crazy to me that no adult stopped and was like, hey, your brain isn't fully developed yet. What are you doing? Like, this is not, and this isn't to shit on other relationships where people got married young and now you've been married a million years and everything's great. I'm happy for you. That's amazing. I should not have been getting married then. And definitely not to that person. And it led to me really learning something about myself that has never changed, that I love about myself also, which is I want to survive. I want to survive and I want to live a good life. Because the marriage was so bad and so awful, and without getting into detail, because I do think a lot of this, I think a lot of the behaviors I was experiencing from the person I was married to came from his own religious trauma, and it makes me very sad for him. I hope that he's gotten help with all of that. But in short, I needed to not be in that marriage. And it wasn't healthy. It was beyond not healthy. It was toxic. It was awful. And I even knew that. I found myself just like weeping, like, what do I do? Like, I messed up so bad. I messed up so bad. And I ended up getting a divorce where I advocated for myself. And I went to my parents bawling. I said, I will not stay. I can't stay. I can't do this. And there was a lot of concern about how that was going to look to the church and how that was going to affect my reputation and how can you be 19 and divorced and all of this stuff. And I didn't care. I just knew, I was like, I'm not staying. I'm not doing this. I am not doing this. And that part of me, I still have in the best way possible, in that if something is shitty and there isn't an appropriate fix for it, if it's just bad, I'm not going to put up with it. I will not put up with toxic, abusive behavior. And it has saved my life, I think, that part of me, multiple times. Why I kept finding myself in that position, I think, has to do with the type of God I was made to worship and look up to, because I actually had a really amazing dad. Like, if you think of like a great girl dad, that was my dad. So where did this weird like daddy issues come from? Probably the like genocidal maniac God that I was worshiping and obsessed with, that allowed me to make excuses for really awful behavior. But that's all. Maybe we do an episode on purity culture and that kind of stuff someday, because spoiler, I did it again a couple years later. I got married again, went down this pattern. Fascinating. Anyways, eventually I find myself, I'm remarried. This is in my mid-20s and living in LA. My family had moved there to keep the ministry there because, for those of you who don't know, my family, my dad wrote some of the books on this 7-mountain dominion theology, where you're called to influence society. They would say it's not dominionism. I would say it is. You can decide for yourself, where you're called to take over the 7 areas of society. So it's like education, government, entertainment, family, economy, all of that. And the way, basically once you unlock all 7 mountains, then you win the kingdom of God on earth. That's in short. But we were taught how to like influence and impact people around us. And that meant going to Hollywood, where we were doing that. We were having Bible studies with like, I would call them D-listers, and then like 1 or 2 A-listers. And that time in my life, I finally was meeting people that weren't Christian and weren't straight, or weren't saying they were straight. They were living openly gay lifestyles is what I would call it. I met people that were different than me, let's put it that way. And they were amazing. They were really amazing people. They had healthy relationships. They were loving and kind to me. Some of them were my bosses. They treated me incredibly. And I didn't know what to do with that. And so it just made me feel more compassion and more love and kindness towards people that didn't believe in Christianity. And so I thought, oh my God, these people are so amazing. I don't want them to go to hell though. So I need to learn everything I can about the gospel, about the Bible, about evidence for God, so that I can truly be a light and I can really win these people over. And along that journey of trying to do that, rereading the Bible, I had already been reading it every day of my life and memorizing scripture. That was part of homeschool curriculum. I did Awanas and all of that. I decided that my partner and I at the time should go to ministry school. And we went to Bethel Supernatural School of Ministry, BSSM, and it's as weird as it sounds. I should do a whole nother episode on that. But while I was there, this was the beginning of this is fall 2016. I'm reading the Bible. I'm studying it on a level that I never had before, more objectively, without, other people kind of filling in gaps for me and like telling me, well, it's just the mystery of God. It's just the mystery of God. Trump is happening. My family eventually starts getting into QAnon. I think that was the following year. And I'm leading worship for like thousands of people. All of these things combined kind of built this like pressure room where I had all the questions I'd ever had in my life about religion, about God, about Christianity, about the Bible, kind of coming to a head. And I felt brave enough to ask them. And I was having to now not just read the Bible, but read science books and read science books. That sounds like something a homeschooler would say. Anyways, you get what I'm saying. Read books about science. Like I'm talking basic high school biology textbooks because that was stuff I didn't get as a Christian homeschooler. I was reading history books. I was reading about the history of Christianity. I was reading about the history of the Bible and how it came to be what it is today. I was reading about the history of religion. Then I was reading about other religions. And all of this, long story short, which I keep saying like 20 minutes into this, I came to the realization that not only was I not going to be able to convince other people with this information that I now had, or more like lack of information, I no longer felt convinced that any God existed, much less this evangelical God. In fact, I was pretty like Gnostic atheist, is that a term? Toward this God. I was like, this God doesn't exist. Like this God of the Bible definitely doesn't exist. It doesn't, like the math is not mathing. This all-loving, all-powerful God, and then this world that nothing is making sense. But truly, I was just like, I don't think there's any God. It felt like, that scene in Oz where, you pull back the curtain. And so to me, I pulled back the curtain and it was just lie after lie after lie. It was indoctrination. It was myth. It was me not having asked enough questions at important times and like kind of feeling frustrated with myself, but then pissed at the pastors that had told me things and the education or lack thereof that I had. It was a really difficult time and yet the most freeing time in my life. And I ended up in that process buying a one-way flight from California back to my hometown in Atlanta. I packed one suitcase. I left everything behind. I started completely over again. And it was difficult. And it took, that was 7, 8, however many years ago, because it was the beginning of 2017 when I left. Again, I don't do math. And here I am now, so grateful that happened. So grateful. And life has only gotten significantly better every year that has gone by, which I'll talk about on this podcast all the time. That's kind of the stuff I want to talk about, is what made life better. Like, what did I gain freedom from and what have I done with it? And also the hardships, because it's not like life got easier. It didn't. If anything, there's been more challenges. But I feel like I have access to actual tools now instead of just these like cheap coping mechanisms and spiritual bypassing. So now we get to the point where I've left. I am just kind of trying to live this quiet life starting over. I was a preschool teacher and I got offline. I was making new friends. I was really grateful to have some old friends be there and support me. And I didn't believe anything anymore. But I also felt this pressure too. Like I was like, well, I have to like practice something in life. And I was so excited that I was now allowed to do whatever I wanted, in that I could go like this. It's so funny that this is where my mind went. I was like, oh my God, I can go to a metaphysical shop. I can buy tarot cards. I can buy crystals. I can, touch a Ouija board and not freak out. So I like dabbled in different, I got really into reading about Buddhism. I got really into this idea that the universe is God, that really it's just like we use the word God to describe what we don't know about the universe. And I kept coming to this conclusion. I was like, this is fun. Like, these cards are really pretty. And this idea that the universe is God is like fun. I just don't believe any of it. Like, I still couldn't. I was just like, I feel like I'm cosplaying a belief. And I didn't want to do that. And that's when I started, around that time where I was just kind of like, I don't know. I don't know what to call myself. I just don't believe. I started posting on my Facebook, just my private Facebook with like 200 friends, all about QAnon and Trump and how evangelical Christianity kind of brought those things about, and how those things were even using evangelical Christianity to, do more. I was basically talking about Project 2025 before it had a name, and my concerns about that, because I grew up around that agenda. And those posts that I was just making for friends, like, I guess one or two people that I don't really know would get through and would take my posts, copy and paste them, and go post them on my family's ministry page, where they were basically saying the opposite and talking about how Trump is, the savior of the world and all this stuff. And then they'd be like, well, your daughter thinks this. Obviously, that didn't go great. That was not good for the family dynamics. We had stayed, when I told them I was leaving religion and all of that, and that I was starting life over again and all that, they actually were, I don't know if supportive is the right word, but they tried to be loving and kind, and they stayed in my life, and I wanted to keep them in my life. Then this is happening, and they're not happy about it. And I get it. Like, that's not fun. But the reaction from them was so strong that it scared me, and so I stopped. I deleted Facebook stuff. I wasn't posting anything. And then somebody, I'm not going to say who, but somebody that meant a lot to me, called and said, why did you stop posting that? And I was like shocked. I didn't even know they read that stuff. They were like, look, you have to keep doing this. Like, you have to be that voice. This is, that world inside and out. And people need to talk about this, and people need to hear about it. And I think you're brave enough to do it. I didn't want to hear that, because I really just didn't want to get into anything messy. I was so non-confrontational, which some of you are hearing this and you're like, what? Because on the line, like, all I'm doing is confrontational stuff. But I took that to heart. And then the insurrection happened. I ended up kind of related, no contact with family for a bit. I also wanted to take time to go to therapy and get the tools that I needed to emotionally regulate myself so that I could be back in contact with my family. And during that time, I started a TikTok and an Instagram, also due to another friend's suggestion, who was like, why don't you just start on another platform? Which, brilliant idea. So I came up with Eve Was Framed. And I was like, well, I'll just stay kind of anonymous. I won't share my real name, and I won't talk about my family. I'll just talk about my perspective. And immediately stuff went viral on TikTok. I think I built a following of 10,000 in a month or something. The rest is history. That was 4 years ago this summer. And it just kind of turned into this. So I was never, people will ask me, like, how do I get into what you're doing? I didn't set out to do this. This wasn't the goal. I actually really didn't want to be a public facing figure in any way. It's happened. And ironically, I think so much of that is because that's what I was trained to do in Christianity, in this like 7 mountain thing where it's, you're taught to be an influencer. That's literally the word that they use. That was before like Instagram was even a thing. And here I am with the label influencer when I go do stuff, which, let's talk about that another time, because I hate that word so much. But yeah, that's where this all came from. And there's so much more to my story. There's so many other details. I kind of just went over the like main data points. There's going to be some Christian apologists in the comments showing up saying, well, you're just angry and bitter, you're hurt by God and all this stuff. And to that I say, I would love for you to read my book when it comes out, which I will have more details on that in a few episodes from now. So stay tuned for all of that. We're going to get to, in the next segment, questions from you guys. And I want to keep this segment going as long as it's fun for everybody, because it's one of the ways I get to keep interacting with you all. I used to do like Instagram and TikTok lives where I would do this. I don't know. I haven't been able to do those as much. My schedule is a little crazier, and also the time change between US followers and here, it's a big gap. So I'm going to make posts on my Instagram from time to time, like inviting you guys to leave your questions there, or you can email the Promise Backlund Show at gmail.com. So that's the THE Promise PROMISE Backlund BACKLUND show SHOW, almost left that part out, at gmail.com. But for now, let's take a break. When we get back, I will read some of the questions that you guys have sent in already. And then we're going to get to my comment section. All right, we're back. I don't know why I thought that it was going to be really difficult for me to record more than 30 minutes worth of me yapping, and yet here I am, and we've done it. We're going overtime, which there is no overtime, I guess, because I haven't established how long this is going to be. And doesn't Joe Rogan go for like 3 hours? Granted, he has guests, but anyways, you're here, you're along for the ride. You can listen to this on double speed if you want. Let's answer some of these questions. You guys sent these in on Instagram this week. Like I said, you can email next week for those. Here's one. How do I talk to family members who constantly try to proselytize me? For those of you who aren't familiar, the term proselytize is basically like evangelize. It's when people are trying to convince you that the gospel is true or somehow bring you to Christ, something along those lines. The thing with staying in relationship with family members, if they are religious and you are not, is that you're going to have to set boundaries. Well, I take that back. Either you're going to have to grow really, really thick skin and not care about those things, or set boundaries. If you don't have, it's such a bad term because I don't think you need to have thick skin for this. I think it's totally fine to be bothered by it. But if you don't have the thick skin, you're going to grow resentful of them every time they do this. You've got to set the boundary. So to me, what that looks like is saying, hey, I appreciate that this is important to you, but this is coming between my ability to stay in communication with you. And that's not the way to word that. This is going to hinder my ability to stay in communication with you. And so if you're going to bring up anything about religion, I'm not going to be able to engage in the conversation anymore. It can be something like that, or it can be, hey, I appreciate that you are trying to convince me of your beliefs, or that you believe that it's important for me to believe this way, or however you want to word it, and then follow up with, but it's not something that I am open to talking with you about. And so if you want to pray for me privately and not let me know about that, you are welcome to, but this can't be part of our relationship. If you're not setting those boundaries, like I said, you're just going to get resentful. And for me, I have there's some things where I've grown tough skin and I'm just like, yeah, I don't care. You guys can say that. It's fine. And then there's other things where I've just been like, yeah, that's off the table. It's not something we talk about. I have a very emotionally intelligent family, actually, and they respect boundaries. And a lot of them I haven't even had to verbally set. We just kind of have found this dynamic that works where we don't talk about certain things. And I'm okay with that. And it seems they are too. If you have family that can't respect that, that's when it's time to sit back and think, like, do I want to, is this worth it? Sometimes it is. Sometimes it is worth the pain that comes with those kinds of jabs where they're saying things like, well, I've been praying for you or whatever. Sometimes it's worth just dealing with it. Sometimes it's not. And that's what you have to figure out. So it's my long answer there. Did you find a new Sunday morning ritual to replace church? If so, what? Couple of things here. Most of our church services growing up were actually on Saturday nights. I still don't really know why. We didn't do Sunday morning church. We did Saturday nights. If I can remember why that was, I'll let you guys know. But I always had Sundays free for the majority of my teen years, which was really nice. However, then when I started going to ministry school, that was church every Sunday morning and Saturday nights and Wednesday and all the days. So it was really nice to get that back. I don't really have rituals because my husband and I work from home. And so every day is a Sunday and a Monday to us. He typically takes off Sundays and Saturdays from any work. So sometimes we'll go out and do more on those days. But I think what I love is just not being tied to a strict schedule anymore and not having to revolve my life around church. But I love the idea of somebody finding a ritual to replace it. I just have my usual morning ritual, which is me sitting in bed while my husband brings me coffee, which is really nice. Next question. I think I'm going to save that one for next week. How do you approach telling your family you're no longer religious? For me, I sent them an email. I think that that's a great way to share news that you want to give somebody time to process before they react. That way they can respond instead of react. And for you too. It gives you time to think out how you want to say it. And it even leaves space for you to like maybe go ahead and apply some boundaries in it. Like, hey, I love you guys. I want to let you in on this because it's important to me that you know me, and I'm not religious anymore. And then you can add on, and I'm down to answer your questions in person, or, and I'm not willing to talk about this yet, whatever it is. The other thing is, you don't have to tell anybody. You actually don't owe that information to anyone. I think for some of us, there's this idea, like when you grow up in Christianity, you're taught that you have to be a good witness of your faith. And so you feel this obligation to tell other people, whatever you are, even if now it's just like, well, I don't believe anymore. But you actually don't owe anyone that. I understand wanting to. I am the type here, like 500,000 people know because I've chosen to blast my business all over the internet. But that is something that you can keep to yourself. If you want to, I'm all for it. I think that the more we are able to be open and honest about our lack of belief, the more normalized it will be eventually. But I understand that currently there's still a really heavy stigma surrounding it. It can lead to really difficult, pointless conversations that only damage relationships. So again, that's like such a personal thing that you have to figure out. But the email or letter hack, that's my favorite way to tell somebody really anything that's not, an emergency, but something they need time to think about, because it gives them that time and space. Let's do one more before we head on to our next segment. I feel so professional saying I have segments on this podcast that I really don't know what I'm doing with. Okay. Are humans good or bad? I believe we are born neither, but most are made into bad people. I don't believe in bad or good. I mean, sure, there is like we all have our subjective scales of what is good and what is bad, but most two people wouldn't agree on every single way that we would categorize those words. I think that humans are human. We're complex. We have all these different things. We could get into talking about free will and how I don't believe it exists. We could get into how trauma impacts people's future in ways that they have no control over. This is not to make an excuse for poor behavior, but it is kind of an explanation for a lot of it. I think humans make choices that are on a spectrum from being harmful to themselves or others or helpful to themselves or others based off of the well-being of each other. And you have people that can be all over that spectrum at different times, different decisions, all kinds of things. But I don't believe in this idea that like somebody's a good person or somebody's a bad person. Although there is like a certain extent where somebody makes so many harmful decisions or behaviors towards other people that you're like, well, you don't get to be categorized as good anymore. You've become a source for really poor behavior that's harming others. But this idea that somebody's born good or bad or all of that, I think that's just more religion. Really funny. My phone has these suction cups, so every time I want to move it, it makes a very annoying sound. Sorry, you guys. I'll try to remember to mute that. Okay, that was our last question for that. I love these. Maybe we'll have time to do more in future episodes because I'll talk less about myself for that large segment. I just wanted to do that for this episode. This episode will probably be one of the longer ones, except for when I have guests. But let's move on to the comment section. If you're unfamiliar with my Facebook page, my Instagram page, TikTok page, hell, even over on The Line, the comments that are made about me on the videos are fascinating. And so I'm going to collect a few every week just so you can hear like what I'm seeing. And this one was made, these comments, the following comments were made on a post, I'll put it here, that I made about purity culture, where it's just me and it says like this text over it says something about purity culture. Here, I can read it to you guys, actually. I love that you can just now search for photos and stuff and it brings up exactly what you're looking for, except for now it's not doing it. Anyways, I posted something basically saying that purity culture is creepy, that it makes women victims, and it paints men as monsters, and it sexualizes young girls, blah blah blah. I'll post it here so that you guys can see. And these are the comments, some of the comments that I got on that post, which never fail to be funny. These aren't that bad, and these I get all the time. This one says, "And you think people care what you're saying for clicks? Shows how shallow you are." Okay, well, thank you for the click, first of all. It is so interesting because if somebody were to post, let's say about, hey, here's a recipe that I use that I think makes the best mashed potatoes, nobody is going on and saying like, oh, you're just doing this for the clicks. Granted, it's the internet, maybe somebody is, but I get so many of those comments. It's like, I'm technically, yes, I'm doing this for the clicks, in that I want the most amount of people to see this that need to see this. Because obviously I think it's information that other people should have. That's why I'm sharing it. But anyways, well, this is another one. And this is not a funny comment. This is a chance for me to clarify something. Somebody said, please hold the phone steady. It's hard to watch with all the wiggling going on. A lot of my videos are like not very steady. Let me explain. I don't know if you can see it right now. It's kind of happening. It looks forced. It's just not. I have a genetic hand tremor, actually in both hands, and it's not controllable. Sometimes it happens all day for days in a row. Sometimes it's like an hour once a week or something. You'll see on the call-in shows, it's so annoying because, not that I can't be nervous sometimes, but this never happens when I'm nervous. I'll go to like take a sip of my water and then it's just like this, just so bad. My mom has this, my grandfather has this. It's just, it is what it is. So sorry. You're going to see shaky cam action sometimes because I don't always have time to find a place to prop my phone up when I have something I want to say. So, okay, now we're moving on to more funny comments. What the fuck's up with your face? From John. And John's profile picture, I'll put it here for you guys who are watching. I'll describe it for the rest of you. It's John holding what I believe to be a baby otter, but it's not John's face. It's never anybody's face criticizing someone else's face. It is always a faceless profile. It's probably a bot, I don't know. But I've also seen this from real accounts, so that's funny to me. Then we have, on the post about purity culture, ma'am, if you want to be a hoe, just be a hoe. Another one, okay, whore. Another one, Tony says, the I've been run through tell. And it's so interesting to me. There's so many like that. When I talk about purity culture, that's some of the most popular responses I get. And it's really telling that when I advocate against controlling, women and then sexualizing young children and painting men as monsters, which I'm against, because I don't think that men, I think you can learn to do better. And the good men that I know would agree with that. It's interesting that when I make statements like that, the response from men is, well, you're just a whore. I am an old married lady in a very monogamous relationship that was raised in purity culture. My body count is not one I'm even going to share because I think that term is ridiculous. But run through is like something I had to Google because I didn't know what that meant when I first started getting comments like that. I was very sheltered. So it's so funny that they're just wrong, first of all. Also, like, who cares if I slept with 20 million people? Advocating against something harmful doesn't mean that I'm advocating for full loss of control and for people to just go crazy. Although if people want to go crazy and they're consenting, I also don't care. I'm advocating against something, and I'm advocating for personal freedom and for consent and for sex education, which, by the way, reduces the likelihood of teens having sex. It reduces teen pregnancy, and it reduces the amount of partners somebody has, usually, when they have sex education. So I don't know why this is such a threat to men. I do know. Anyways, let's see another one. This one's great. Can you broads drop the feminist shit for a couple years? Look what has happened because of all of it. You mean like we finally were able to have credit cards of our own in 1974? We were able to start voting. We were allowed to go get an education and be a mother if we wanted, or to pick one. Like, tell me the problem. We were allowed to finally put our names on the books that we wrote and then get paid for it. But also, what's hilarious, and this is why feminism must continue. He starts this off. Can you broads drop the feminist shit? No, I can't. Not until you stop that shit. Anyways, you can't make this shit up. This one's really funny. We got Miss Loose Coochie Captain over here, which is basically his way of calling me a whore, I guess. And again, just the insecurity of these men who are implying that basically if I have sex with them, then it takes away my value. Honestly, I agree. If these are the options, it's so backwards. Let's move on to another comment section, because here's a new thing I'm experiencing. Now that I live in Finland, I also post content on another account on TikTok. I think it's called Caydus Music, Caydus. And I posted one of the things I post more about, like life in Finland and being in Europe, because we travel around Europe and stuff as well. And I posted this video this summer that I thought was really cute and funny of my husband and I eat differently. Granted, because of this, I now am starting to eat more like him, but my husband eats in the more typical to European style, which is fork and knife in the hand at the same time. Also, trying to remember, fork is in the opposite hand of whatever I'm used to. We'll put it that way. And so I made a video where I'm showing him, and it's like, oh, my husband eating like the European gentleman that he is. And then it pans to me, and it's like, and then me eating like a cave woman. Which, please go watch the video, because I'm just like eating like an American does, because our culture is different and our etiquette is different. I grew up with a grandmother from Birmingham, Alabama. She was all about etiquette. So I'm eating the appropriate etiquette for what we were taught in the US South specifically. But the comments there, the Europeans hate me for it. They are so mad. And let me just say, when I say Europeans, I notice in this comment section, it's like people from Germany, France, those kinds of areas. Finns, not so much. If anything, Finns were coming to defend me because they're pretty pragmatic. They're like, she's eating. They have different culture. What can you do? But these are some of these comments. I couldn't sit opposite that woman doing that. And then they put the like puking emoji face. This is funny when you've seen the video, because you see like how the way I'm eating is so normal and there's nothing crazy about it. Like, I'm not chewing with my mouth open or anything. But just this implication that like I couldn't sit across that woman. Like my poor husband, which my husband was dying laughing because he said he's never even noticed that we eat differently until I pointed it out when I made that video. Another one. Oh, hate from, and then it's the Norwegian flag. Hate from Norway. Thank you for the warm welcome. This other one. If you don't want to embarrass your husband, please don't do that in public. You guys, please don't do that in public. I'm just eating my risotto with a fork where you kind of like have to scoop it like a little shovel. What else do you want me to do? And they didn't give me a spoon. Another one. Being an adult and eating like an animal is just so disgusting. I used cutlery by myself since 3 years old, for fuck's sake. Congratulations. You eat the way that you were taught. And I eat the way that I was taught. I love living in Finland. The part that I'm not loving is this superiority complex, which I'm not saying that doesn't happen. Let's talk about how the US treats immigrants, first of all. We don't even want to touch that. But this superiority thing of where like, no, it's not culture. It's the right way to do something or the wrong way to do something. People eat differently in different countries, actually, because manners are very subjective. And it is hilarious that the people that went around colonizing everybody still have this idea that, no, this is the right way. Like, maybe you guys should chill on that now. Like, it is 2025. The last one that I love this. It says, you hold knife and fork in each hand. Considered a bit rude if you just hold the fork. Ugh, she's positively medieval. What movie is that from? There is some movie where this girl goes like, that's positively medieval. And I don't remember what it is. Somebody commented. But anyways, that's a new thing I get used to, is this superiority complex toward immigrants. I'll keep you guys updated on all of that. I promise the show is almost over. This is the last part. Love it, leave it, TBD. Love it. I am loving the new music that is out right now. Specifically, Demi Lovato's new album, Dance Pop is Back, which it is, here in Finland, like dark most of the time, rainy most of the time, and I love having just fun recession pop music back. Hayley Williams' album, if you haven't listened to it, it is going to be in my top favorite albums of all times. The production on that is absolutely incredible. It is good music. It is objectively good music, is what I'm going to say. The songwriting, the lyrics, her voice, the stories, the messages behind every bit of it, the whole thing is a journey. I love it. Please go listen to the full album. Disappearing Man, I think, is my favorite one. Obviously, is it Southern Gotham or some? I don't remember. Oh, No True Believer, I think is what it's called. Or take that back. Sorry, Haley. True Believer. Incredible song. Love the whole album. Lily Allen's new album. I understand problematic, all these things. The music is good. The songs are incredible. It's another, I have Pussy Palace stuck in my head. It's not going away. And then, last but not least, on my new favorite music this week, I'm going to say this word wrong. Deacidal. No, I'm not going to say it wrong. I know how to say that word. Deacidal by my friend Casey Sable. Incredible song. It's about a god killer, the one from Thor. I don't remember the name. Go listen to the song. It's incredible. Another love it. I have an addiction. And I don't know if we can call it an addiction. I have a community that I have built. I have a farm. I have animals and I have responsibilities. And it's Stardew Valley. I just discovered this summer because I needed something to do when I wasn't writing to like calm me down and keep me from reading about the news because it was too much. And so Stardew Valley happened. I'm obsessed with it. And if anybody wants to talk about it, let's talk about it because I love it. I'm only in year 2. And that's after like hours and hours of me sitting there obsessed, but I want to go play it after I record this. And then, oh, sorry, that wasn't the last Love It. The last Love It thing is this show on Netflix. Nobody wants this. The new season is out. We're like halfway through it. That show is so cute, hilarious. Somebody's going to tell me why it's problematic, and then I'm going to feel really bad. I feel like there's nothing I can say anymore that isn't like, well, we're not watching that anymore. We're not doing this. Teach me. That's fine. Let me know. But right now I love it. So leave it. On that note, hot takes about celebrities. I understand. Trust me, I understand because I want to post these all the time. I understand how easy it is to come up with these hot takes. I think they're cringy. I think we have to stop doing this so much. First of all, it's always interesting to me why we choose to talk about how much we don't want a certain somebody to have attention, but then we post about them. Like somebody will do something problematic, and then all the internet does is talk about them. All that does is give them more publicity, which is only ever good, and it only gets them, like there's a certain level of celebrities where like I think about like Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie when that whole thing happened. Like that only was good. Like technically we were talking shit about them back in that whole scandal, but like it's only benefiting their overall brand. So sometimes I think we just have to stop feeding the machine. I also have seen so many bots out there creating hot takes and discussions about celebrities where like nobody would have ever come up with this random thing that is now deemed problematic. And everybody just wants to talk about it. Meanwhile, I don't know, kids are dying in Palestine. And we're taking up space talking about this thing that none of us are going to resolve. It's not going to do anything. Maybe it's an issue. Maybe it's not. And I'm not trying to subtweet here because I'm actually just talking about in general that happening a lot. I thought of it because of the Lily Allen thing. But maybe we just don't give them so much attention. I don't know. Another leave it, hating on Finnish weather and complaining about winter. And this is my hot take for Finns. Because all I have heard since moving here is you guys telling me, welcome to Finland, but you're going to hate it. The weather sucks. The winter sucks. All of this stuff. Oh, you have no idea what you signed up for. First of all, I have been here for the winter before. I also understand cold. I also understand dark. I also understand rain. So these are not foreign concepts to me. I lived in Ohio for a bit. Like I understand. I understand also that winters here are longer and more intense. I understand that no matter what, whether I'm in southern Georgia or I'm in Finland, I need to up my vitamin D3 during those months so that I don't get depressed. And I need to listen to more pop music. Thank you, Demi Lovato, so that I don't get depressed. But that's just like, that's winter. To me, winter sucks and it is what it is. You guys also have the most beautiful summers ever. In Atlanta, summer is hell, actual hell. Um, and yet I'm not like, it is what it is, you know? So I just think you guys should admit that you need something to complain about Finland, but don't force that on me. And maybe I will complain about it some. I don't know. But right now, I just am grateful to be living here. I like it. I have a warm, cozy apartment that I can be in. I've been out in the evenings, in the rain and in the snow and all the things. I'm all right. Merino wool underwear, incredible. I'm like sweating half the time. So I think I'll be all right, especially if you're not making me feel like I have to be complaining to be here. I like it here. Let me enjoy it. Let me enjoy this thing. And then to be decided, the Love is Blind newest season. If you haven't watched it, there's going to be spoilers. And then I'm going to end the episode. So maybe stop watching. It's the least successful episode or season that they've ever had. Some of the episodes were like so juicy and so interesting. Some of them not. And then the ending just was like, Wah. It's to be decided because by the time this episode comes out, the, what do you call it? The season finale, not the season finale, the reunion episode will be out. And depending on how that goes is how I will feel about this season and if it's worth watching for somebody that hasn't seen it or not. There weren't really that many spoilers. Anyways, another thing to be decided, coffee with cream. I don't know. I've been having coffee with cream, and I think I'm going to switch to coffee with milk because when we go to coffee shops here, I've been getting just milk. But when we're at home, I have cream. And the mouthfeel is a little too heavy. I think I'm switching to milk. Cue the vegans getting angry at me now that I said that. But there's something about, like, I'm just over it. I think, but that's why it's to be decided. And the last to be decided is growing out my gray hair. If you're watching instead of listening, I don't know if you can see, it's so much more obvious in person. I found an incredible hairdresser, Antti, if he happens to be listening, here in Finland. And he's helping me on my journey to growing my hair out and growing out the hair dye, which now is like, I don't know, I think I've got like a solid couple inches, maybe even 3 of gray growth. And it's not that I hate having grays. I don't care. I went gray in my early 20s. I miss like color. You're an OG Eve Was Framed follower. If you remember when I had the white streak in the front of my hair, the rest of my hair was dyed black. And then I had a white streak. And then sometimes I would have like colors and extensions that were put in. And I don't know, I just miss having like change and fun and stuff. So I don't know. That's to be decided. We're going to see. We're going to see how natural I go and continue to go. That is the end of the show. And I don't know how to wrap this up in a smooth way, but we have to end it. I will say that the next episode, I'm hoping there's going to be a special guest. I will let you guys know. Either way, we're going to repeat some of these segments. You're welcome to give your opinion in the comments. I may or may not listen to your suggestions. I do want to say, if you listen to the whole thing, thank you. Thanks for hanging out with me. I'm genuinely so excited to engage in the comments about this because for once I'm not, and I probably will make this I'm not going to say that. I'm not having to engage in like apologetics and like atheist arguments in the comments. Like this is my chance to actually engage with the people that follow my content because they relate, because they feel less alone, because they want to talk about stuff other than all the horrible things. We want to, I think that's what I want to focus on in the next episode is talking about meaning without religion and what that looks like. And maybe I'll share like some of my little practices in life. We can call them rituals or whatever. I don't like that word, but there's so much more than just this faith deconstruction and just debating back and forth with people that disagree with us. There's also a lot of shared things. There's also just the part of being a human and what that looks like, and having fun thoughts and opinions about things and changing them, which, by the way, I'm going to be wrong about so many things all the time on here. Like, you think I'm going to talk for an hour and not fuck something up? I will. And I'll come back and I'll apologize and I'll learn and do better, which is another reason I want to do this. I love changing my mind. I love being educated on things and figuring out why I believe something or why I've thought something, and then altering it as needed. So hopefully this can be real time of us doing that together. Please, please, please like, subscribe, and all of that if you do like it and want to subscribe, because that will help me gauge how often to do these episodes and where to upload them and all of that. And I want to hear from you guys. So until next week, also keep in mind you can email thepromisebacklundshow@gmail.com. I will talk to you guys next week. Do something kind today.